What if I told you that a civilization has survived 2,500 years of invasions, conquests, and revolutions, yet maintained its distinct cultural identity? This is the remarkable story of Persia, from Cyrus the Great to the modern Islamic Republic. Before the Persians emerged as a world power, another ancient civilization had already established itself in what we now call Iran. The Elamites flourished in southwestern Iran from around 2700 BCE, making them one of the world's oldest civilizations. Their homeland centered around cities like Susa, which would later become an important Persian capital. What makes Elamite culture fascinating is how they maintained their unique identity while absorbing influences from powerful neighbors. Their art combined local styles with elements from Sumer and Babylon, creating a hybrid aesthetic that showcased both innovation and adaptation. For nearly 2,000 years, the Elamites were major players in Middle Eastern politics, alternating between trade partnerships and fierce rivalries with Mesopotamian powers. The Elamites pioneered early forms of constitutional monarchy. Clay tablets mention laws limiting absolute royal power, potentially representing history's first efforts to establish rule of law over royal whims 4,000 years ago. Their artistic achievements, including early ziggurats and intricate bronze work, laid important foundations for later Persian aesthetics. By the 7th century BCE, a new power was emerging in northwest Iran. The Medes, an Iranian people who had migrated into the region centuries earlier, began transforming from scattered tribal groups into a unified kingdom. Under King Cyaxares, they revolutionized warfare by organizing their warriors into specialized units, spearmen, archers, and cavalry, instead of fighting as a disorganized mass. The defining moment came in 612 BCE, when the Medes allied with Neo-Babylonians to destroy Nineveh, ending Assyrian dominance that had terrorized the Near East for centuries. At its height, the Median Empire stretched from central Anatolia to Central Asia, developing administrative techniques that balanced central control with local autonomy, an approach that became a hallmark of later Iranian empires. Around 550 BCE, a figure emerged who would transform Persia from a regional power to a global empire. Cyrus the Great, born to a Persian father and Median mother, united these previously rival peoples and created the Achaemenid Empire. His rise began with overthrowing his grandfather Astyages, the last Median king, but instead of destroying Median culture, he incorporated it into his new state. This pattern of integration rather than destruction became Cyrus's signature approach. After securing Iran, he turned westward toward the wealthy kingdom of Lydia. King Croesus, whose name became synonymous with fabulous wealth, had attacked Persian territories thinking the new empire vulnerable. Within 2 years, Cyrus defeated Croesus, captured Sardis, and absorbed Lydia's substantial gold reserves. Cyrus's most famous conquest came in 539 BCE, when his armies captured Babylon without significant bloodshed. He respected Babylonian religious practices and presented himself as chosen by their god Marduk to restore proper worship. This political masterstroke transformed potential resistance into peaceful acceptance. The capture of Babylon yielded the Cyrus Cylinder, often called the first declaration of human rights. This clay barrel outlined his policies of religious tolerance and restoration of local traditions, including allowing exiled Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. The Hebrew Bible portrays Cyrus as a liberator sent by God, the only non-Jewish person called Messiah in Scripture. Cyrus built his ceremonial capital at Pasargadae, where his simple tomb still stands today. Unlike the massive monuments of Egyptian pharaohs, its modest design reflected the pragmatic nature of Persian rule. The empire he created stretched from the Mediterranean to Central Asia, encompassing diverse peoples, languages, and religions. To govern this vast territory, Cyrus developed the satrap system, dividing the empire into provinces ruled by governors who answered directly to him. This structure balanced central authority with local autonomy, allowing subject peoples to maintain their customs while ensuring imperial revenue and security. Unlike many ancient conquerors, Cyrus allowed cultural and religious diversity. an approach that wasn't merely idealistic, but practical governance that reduced resistance and created stability. When Cyrus died in 530 BCE, succession crisis threatened to tear apart the young Persian Empire. Into this chaos stepped Darius I, who claimed the throne in 522 BCE and faced multiple pretenders. His account of these events, preserved in the Behistun inscription carved high on a cliff face in western Iran, stands as one of history's most important documents. Written in 3 languages, Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian, this massive relief shows Darius triumphant over his enemies. Once secure on his throne, Darius expanded the empire to its greatest extent. Persian armies pushed eastward to the Indus River, northward into the Caucasus, westward across North Africa, and into southeastern Europe. At its peak, the empire encompassed 5.5 million square kilometers and contained nearly 50 million people, roughly 44% of the world's population. Darius revolutionized imperial administration by refining the satrap system. He divided the empire into about 20 provinces, each overseen by 3 officials: a satrap, a military commander, and a secretary reporting directly to the king. This separation of powers created checks and balances, preventing any single official from becoming too powerful. Royal inspectors, known as the eyes and ears of the king, traveled throughout provinces monitoring local administration. Economically, Darius introduced the first standardized currency system spanning multiple continents. Gold darics and silver siglos provided reliable exchange mediums across the empire, while standardized weights and measures eliminated local confusion. His most famous infrastructure project was the Royal Road, stretching over 2,500 kilometers from Sardis to Susa. Along this road, relay stations every 25 kilometers provided fresh horses and riders for an ancient postal service that could carry messages across the empire in 7 days. Darius chose Persepolis as his ceremonial capital, beginning construction around 518 BCE. The complex featured massive columned halls, intricate staircases decorated with tribute-bearing delegates from across the empire, and elaborate audience chambers. These buildings combined architectural elements from Egypt, Babylon, Lydia, and other parts of the empire into a uniquely Persian imperial style. Not all of Darius's ventures succeeded. His campaign against nomadic Scythians ended inconclusively, and his attempt to punish Athens led to defeat at Marathon in 490 BCE. This setback would have major consequences when his son Xerxes attempted to finish what Darius had started. Xerxes inherited not just an empire, but a mission to complete his father's unfinished business with the Greeks. Preparations for the Greek campaign were unprecedented. For 4 years, Xerxes gathered supplies, built ships, and conscripted troops from across his domains. The resulting force represented the extraordinary diversity of the Persian Empire: Egyptians, Babylonians, Bactrians, Scythians, Ethiopians, and dozens of other peoples. In spring 480 BCE, Xerxes faced his first challenge crossing the Hellespont. His engineers constructed pontoon bridges using hundreds of ships, but when storms destroyed them, Xerxes reportedly had the sea whipped and branded, likely a Persian religious ritual misinterpreted by Greek observers. The rebuilt bridges allowed an army so large that, according to Herodotus, it drank rivers dry. The first major confrontation came at Thermopylae, where 300 Spartan warriors made their famous stand. For 3 days they held the narrow pass before being outflanked and destroyed. While militarily a Persian victory, Thermopylae became a powerful symbol of Greek resistance. With the path open, Xerxes captured and burned Athens, fulfilling his primary objective. Yet at this moment of triumph, disaster struck at sea. The Persian navy engaged Greeks in the narrow Straits of Salamis, where Persian numerical advantage became a liability. More maneuverable Greek ships outfought their enemies, sinking over 200 Persian vessels. Watching from his golden throne, Xerxes witnessed the destruction of his naval power. Following this defeat, Xerxes returned to Asia with much of his army. The remaining Persian forces were decisively defeated at Plataea the following year, effectively ending Persian attempts to conquer Greece. Despite this Western setback, the Persian Empire remained powerful under Xerxes, who continued building programs at Persepolis. By the mid-4th century BCE, the Achaemenid Empire had entered decline. Court intrigues became common, provincial rebellions flared, and imperial taxation grew heavier. When Darius III took the throne in 336 BCE, Persia faced its greatest external threat, Alexander of Macedonia. Alexander crossed into Asia Minor in 334 BCE with 40,000 troops. Though dramatically outnumbered, his disciplined army employed innovative tactics. At Gaugamela in 331 BCE, despite commanding perhaps 100,000 troops, Darius fled when Alexander's cavalry threatened his position. This action severely damaged Persian morale and legitimacy, leading to the empire's collapse and Darius's murder by his own officials in 330 BCE. When Alexander died unexpectedly in Babylon in 323 BCE, his vast empire immediately splintered. From this chaos emerged Seleucus I Nicator, who secured control of the eastern territories and established the Seleucid Empire. Stretching from the Mediterranean to India's borders, the Seleucid rulers faced an immense challenge. Governing territories where Greeks and Macedonians formed a tiny minority among much larger native populations. Their solution was establishing new Greek-style cities throughout their domains. The most impressive was Seleucia on the Tigris, built near modern Baghdad, featuring grid layouts, Greek temples, theaters, and gymnasiums. Greek became the official language, while Greek artistic styles, philosophy, and religious practices were actively promoted. The gymnasium became particularly important as an institution training young men in Greek cultural values. These cultural centers created a visible divide between Hellenized elites and the general population. Despite these Hellenization efforts, Persian cultural resistance proved remarkably resilient. In rural areas and highland regions, local populations maintained traditional languages, religious practices, and social customs. Zoroastrianism remained the primary faith, with fire temples continuing to function throughout the Seleucid period. The Persian language persisted in everyday use despite having no official status. The Seleucid Empire faced constant challenges. Externally, the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt competed for influence, while the Mauryan Empire in India threatened eastern borders. Internally, vast distances made communication difficult, and provincial governors sometimes established effectively independent realms. Royal succession regularly triggered civil wars. In many regions, a hybrid Greco-Iranian elite developed. Persian nobles who adopted elements of Greek culture gained military and administrative positions, serving as intermediaries between rulers and subjects. Intermarriage created families with mixed cultural identities. Archaeological evidence shows homes containing both Greek pottery and traditional Persian items, suggesting complex cultural blending. The Seleucids' grip on eastern territories began weakening in the mid-3rd century BCE. First, the Greco-Bactrian kingdom broke away in Central Asia. More significantly, around 247 BCE, the Parthians began expanding from northeastern Iran, gradually taking control of the Iranian plateau. What makes the Seleucid period fascinating is how rulers themselves adapted to local realities. Despite their Greek origins, official portraits often showed Seleucid kings in Persian-style clothing when addressing Eastern subjects. Several kings made offerings at Zoroastrian temples to gain local support, maintaining Persian administrative systems while adding Greek elements. The Seleucid failure to fully Hellenize Persia ultimately allowed for the eventual reassertion of Iranian political and cultural identity. As the Seleucid Empire weakened, a new power emerged from northeastern Iran. The Parthians, originally a nomadic Iranian tribe, began their rise around 247 BCE when Arsaces I established an independent kingdom. What started as a small breakaway state would eventually grow into an empire that revived Iranian political power after centuries of foreign rule. The early Parthian leaders recognized Seleucid weaknesses and methodically expanded their territory, capturing the Iranian plateau region by region. By the 1st century BCE, they controlled lands from the Euphrates to the Hindu Kush, positioning themselves as crucial intermediaries between the Roman Empire and Han Dynasty China. What made the Parthians particularly effective was their military innovation. Their army centered on two complementary cavalry types: cataphracts, heavily armored horsemen functioning as shock troops, and horse archers who perfected the Parthian shot, feigning retreat, then turning in the saddle to shoot arrows at pursuing enemies. This tactic confounded conventional armies that couldn't match their mobility. Unlike centralized Achaemenid or Seleucid states, Parthian political structure resembled a feudal system. The Arsacid king relied on powerful noble families who maintained their own territories and military forces. While ensuring local elite loyalty, this arrangement created chronic succession disputes and internal rivalries. The Parthians consciously presented themselves as restorers of Persian traditions after Hellenistic rule. They revived Zoroastrian religious practices, supported local Iranian customs, and gradually reintroduced Persian administrative systems. Simultaneously, they pragmatically incorporated useful Hellenistic elements. Their coins featured Greek inscriptions alongside Persian imagery. Ctesiphon, near modern Baghdad, became the main Parthian capital and developed into a major commercial and political center. From this base, Parthian forces regularly clashed with Roman armies over Mesopotamia and valuable trade routes. The pinnacle of Parthian military success came in 53 BCE at the Battle of Carrhae. Roman general Crassus, seeking military glory, invaded Parthian territory with a large force. The Parthians employed superior mobility and desert environment to surround and destroy the Roman legions. Crassus was killed, and Romans lost their sacred military standards. This humiliating defeat established Parthians as Rome's most formidable eastern rival. Chinese historical records mention the Parthian Empire as Anxi, describing diplomatic exchanges and trade relations along the Silk Road. These connections made Parthians key players in the first truly global commerce network, facilitating exchange between East and West long before modern globalization. In 224 CE, a new Persian dynasty emerged that would reshape Iran's identity and challenge Rome for ancient world dominance. Ardashir, claiming descent from a legendary figure named Sasan, defeated the last Parthian king and founded the Sassanid Empire, the last great Persian dynasty before Islamic conquests. Unlike the loose Parthian confederation, the Sassanids created a highly centralized state with power concentrated in the king's hands. They deliberately connected themselves to ancient Achaemenids, commissioning rock reliefs showing their divine right to rule carved alongside monuments of Darius and Xerxes. This Persian revival centered on Zoroastrianism, which became the official state religion. Fire temples dedicated to Ahura Mazda appeared throughout the empire, and Zoroastrian priests gained unprecedented political influence. The head priest served as key royal advisor, while religious courts enforced orthodox practices. The most successful Sassanid ruler, Shapur I, achieved what no other Persian king had managed, capturing a Roman emperor in battle. In 260 CE, his forces surrounded and captured Emperor Valerian near Edessa. This unprecedented victory was immortalized in a massive rock carving, showing Shapur on horseback with Valerian kneeling before him. Sassanid cities showcased Persian engineering and artistic achievement. The capital at Ctesiphon featured the Taki Kasra, a massive vaulted hall with an arch spanning 27 meters, the largest unreinforced brick arch in the world. Gundashapur became one of the ancient world's most important centers of learning, its academy and hospital attracting scholars from across the known world. Culturally, the Sassanids developed sophisticated artistic traditions with lasting influence. Their distinctive style featured decorative silverwork, with royal hunting scenes, textiles with geometric patterns, and elaborate stucco architectural decorations. Chess, backgammon, and polo originated or were formalized under Sassanid patronage. The empire's military centered on heavily armored cavalry known as Savaran, elite horsemen whose techniques and equipment would later influence Byzantine and medieval European heavy cavalry. Despite its strength, the Sassanid Empire faced recurring challenges from Byzantium. In the early 7th century, the 25-year war with Emperor Heraclius severely weakened both empires. This mutual exhaustion proved catastrophic when Arab-Muslim armies emerged from the Arabian Peninsula. At the decisive Battle of Qadisiyah in 636 CE, Arab forces defeated the depleted Sassanid military. By 651 CE, the last Sassanid emperor, Yazdgerd III, was killed while fleeing eastward, ending both the dynasty and pre-Islamic Persian rule. The conquest that ended Zoroastrian Persia would ultimately transform Islam itself, as Persians brought their sophistication to Islamic civilization. The Islamic conquest of Persia in the 630s CE marked not the end of Persian civilization, but its remarkable transformation. Initially under the Umayyad Caliphate, 661 to 750 CE, Persians who embraced Islam remained second-class citizens, excluded from high office despite their conversion. This discrimination created growing resentment that eventually exploded in the Abbasid Revolution of 750 CE. The Abbasid Revolution, led by the Persian convert Abu Muslim, ended Umayyad rule and established a new caliphate with its capital at Baghdad, strategically positioned near former Sassanid power centers. Unlike their predecessors, the Abbasids embraced Persian administrative expertise and cultural sophistication. Persian converts now entered the highest levels of government, military, and intellectual life. The remarkable Barmakid family exemplifies this transformation. Originally Buddhist temple administrators from Balkh, they converted to Islam and became the most powerful viziers of the early Abbasid period. Under their influence, the caliphs sponsored translations of scientific and philosophical works from Greek, Sanskrit, and Middle Persian into Arabic, creating the foundation for the Islamic Golden Age. By the 9th century, Persian intellectuals had fully entered Islamic scholarly life while maintaining connections to their cultural heritage. Scholars like Al-Khwarizmi, who gave us the word algorithm, and Ibn Sina, Avicenna, made groundbreaking contributions to mathematics, medicine, and philosophy. The intellectual reconquest extended beyond science. Persian literary forms and court customs gradually reshaped elite culture across the Islamic world. Persian poetry introduced new genres and aesthetic sensibilities, while Persian concepts of kingship influenced political theory. In the 10th century, the Samanid dynasty in northeastern Iran explicitly embraced Persian cultural heritage within an Islamic framework. Their capital Bukhara became one of the world's great cultural centers, known as the Dome of Islam. Most significantly, the Samanids elevated New Persian as a literary language, commissioning Persian poets and writers after 3 centuries of Arabic dominance. This literary renaissance produced figures like Rudaki, considered the father of Persian poetry. The Samanid period also saw a collection of ancient Persian legends into coherent narratives that would become the basis for Ferdowsi's epic Shahnameh, Book of Kings. The Seljuk Turks, who conquered much of the Middle East in the 11th century, continued this pattern of cultural adoption. Despite being nomadic warriors, they absorbed Persian administrative systems and made Persian their official language. The partnership between Sultan Malik Shah and his Persian vizier Nizam al-Mulk perfectly exemplified Turkic military strength combined with Persian governmental expertise. Even the devastating Mongol invasion of the 13th century, which initially brought unprecedented destruction, eventually followed this pattern. Within 2 generations, Mongol rulers like Ghazan Khan converted to Islam and adopted Persian as their court language, demonstrating once again Persian culture's remarkable ability to transform its conquerors. In 1501, a remarkable 14-year-old leader named Shah Ismail I founded the Safavid Empire, making a decision that permanently altered Persian history, declaring Shia Islam as the official state religion. This revolutionary move, achieved through persuasion, economic incentives, and sometimes force, created a sharp religious divide between Persia and its Sunni neighbors, particularly the Ottoman Empire. The Safavid Empire reached its zenith under Shah Abbas I, 1588 to 1629, who modernized the military, moved the capital to Isfahan, and transformed it into one of the world's most beautiful cities. The magnificent Naqsh-e-Jahan Square showcased Persian architectural genius, while the economy thrived through carpet production and silk trade with European and Asian markets. The Safavids created a distinctly Iranian national identity centered on Shia Islam that proved remarkably durable. This religious cultural identity survived the dynasty's fall in 1722 and continues to shape Iran today. After periods of chaos under the Afsharids and Zans, the Qajar dynasty, 1789 to 1925, struggled with European colonial pressure. Humiliating defeats by Russia cost Iran its Caucasian territories, while British economic concessions eroded sovereignty. The Constitutional Revolution of 1905 to 1911 represented early attempts at democratic reform, though foreign intervention ultimately undermined it. Reza Shah Pahlavi, 1925 to 1941, launched aggressive modernization, building railways, establishing modern education, and enforcing Western dress codes. His son Mohammad Reza continued these efforts while becoming increasingly authoritarian. Despite oil wealth and Western support, growing opposition from religious conservatives, intellectuals, and workers culminated in the 1979 revolution. The story of Persia reveals an extraordinary civilization that has survived and transformed every challenge across 2,500 years. From Cyrus's tolerance to modern Iran's struggles, Persian culture has shown remarkable resilience, adapting, absorbing, and enduring through empire and revolution, conquest and renaissance, always maintaining its essential character while embracing necessary change. The Islamic Revolution, led by Ayatollah Khomeini, ended 2,500 years of monarchical rule and established the world's first modern theocracy. The new system combined elected institutions with religious oversight, creating a unique form of governance where clerical authorities hold ultimate power. The Iran-Iraq War, 1980 to 1988, helped consolidate the Islamic Republic's authority, while regional proxy conflicts and nuclear program disputes have shaped its international relations. Internal tensions between religious governance and secular aspirations, particularly among Iran's young, educated population, continue to define contemporary Iranian society. Today's Iran presents fascinating contradictions: a theocratic state with highly educated citizens, international isolation alongside regional influence, and ancient Persian identity expressed through Islamic governance. The 2022 protests following Mahsa Amini's death demonstrated ongoing tensions between state authority and popular aspirations.